Have you ever looked up at the stars and felt a strange pull, a sense of homesickness for a place you've never known? This feeling isn't just imagination. It's an ancient echo, a whisper from a part of you that remembers a different reality. For generations, we've told stories of gateways to the stars, of physical doors built by gods or aliens to traverse the cosmos. But this common story distracts from a deeper truth. The real ache you feel isn't for another planet. It's a longing for a state of being that we, as a people, have forgotten. It's the memory of a connection that was once as natural as breathing. Today, we are not talking about science fiction. We will explore the idea of ancient stargates as something far more profound. We will look at them not as physical doorways to other worlds, but as spiritual portals within your own consciousness. Gateways of perception left behind by the forgotten, divine aspects of ourselves. You will begin to understand that the purpose of these portals was never to leave the earth, but to fully arrive within yourself, to access the universe that you hold inside. If this feeling of cosmic homesickness resonates with you, share a single word in the comments that describes it. This space is a silent sanctuary for those who hear these echoes, a place to know you are not alone in your search. Subscribe to our vault, not for answers that shout, but for questions that whisper. Here we remember together. There is an ancient hermetic principle known for thousands of years. As above, so below. As within, so without. This isn't just a mystical phrase, it is a map. It teaches that the macrocosm of the stars and galaxies is a direct reflection of the microcosm within you. The vastness of space, the burning suns, the silent darkness, it all corresponds to a landscape inside your soul. The Stargate, then, was never a machine to travel the above. It was a tool of understanding, a focal point to realize that the above was already within. Its purpose was to bridge the inner and outer worlds, not different points in space. So, let us now move beyond the fantasy of stone circles and swirling vortexes. Let's walk through the real gate together and explore the forgotten purpose of these inner portals, the ones that have been waiting patiently for you to remember the key. Chapter 1, The Gate of Forgetting, an Anatomy of Our Amnesia. We begin our journey into the heart of what we call stargates. And as I have said, the first gate, the most important one, is not located out there, in some distant land or cosmic depth. It is right here. It is the state in which we all reside, a state we can call the Great Forgetting. To understand what this gate is, we must first conduct a ruthless but honest diagnosis of our time. We must understand the architecture of our own prison before we can find the way out. Part 1. The architecture of modern noise. Consider your typical day. How does it begin? For most, it begins with the bright light of a screen. Before you even feel your own body or hear your own breath, you are already connected to the global neural network of other people's thoughts, fears, and desires. This first gesture sets the tone for the entire day. Your attention, the most valuable currency you possess, is immediately withdrawn and directed outward. This digital stream is not just information. It is a carefully calibrated hypnotic ritual. Every notification, every like, every short video is a microdose of dopamine, the chemical of anticipation and desire. Your brain is being trained for constant stimulation, for the perpetual search for something new. As a result, your ability for deep, prolonged concentration atrophies. Your attention becomes fractured, superficial. You can read a headline, but not the article. You can watch a video, but not hear its essence. This is not your fault. It is the design. The system we live in thrives on your scattered attention. While you are distracted, you consume. While you are anxious, you seek quick fixes. While you feel incomplete, you purchase an identity. This is the first outer layer of the gate of forgetting, a deafening noise that makes it impossible to hear anything else. Beneath this noise lies a deeper layer, the cult of external validation. From your earliest days, you are taught to build yourself from external bricks. Grades in school, the approval of your parents, your title at work, the number of your followers, the brand of your car. You create a complex collage, an avatar that you present to the world, and you begin to believe that this avatar is you. You outsource the authority to define your worth to other people and to systems. Your sense of self-esteem becomes a variable, dependent on outside factors. You are constantly scanning reality for confirmation. Am I good enough? Am I successful? Am I accepted? This process is utterly exhausting. It turns life into a perpetual job interview where you are both the candidate and the hiring manager. In this state of seeking external approval, you become a total stranger to yourself. Because the real you, the core of your being, needs no validation. It simply is. It is sovereign. By handing over the right of self-definition to the outer world, you close the door to this inner core. You surrender the throne and become a courtier in your own kingdom. And finally, the third and most insidious layer of this architecture, the disappearance of unstructured time, the eradication of boredom. Think about it. When was the last time you were truly bored? Not just waiting in a line while scrolling through a feed, but truly, deeply bored. When there was nothing to do, nothing to watch, nothing to listen to, just you and the silence. We have become terrified of these empty spaces. We fill every second. Music in our ears on the way to work, a podcast while washing the dishes, a series while eating a meal. We are afraid to be left alone with ourselves because we don't know who we will meet there. But it is in this boredom, in this emptiness, that the alchemy happens. Silence is not a vacuum. It is the space in which the inner voice can finally speak in a whisper. Boredom is the soil from which intuition and creativity grow. By depriving ourselves of it, we deprive ourselves of the chance to hear anything but the deafening chorus of the external world. We are living in a room with a television that is always on, and we wonder why we cannot hear our own thoughts. These are the three pillars of the gate of forgetting: the digital noise that scatters our attention, the cult of external validation that steals our identity, and the fear of silence that severs our connection to the inner world. This is the state we have accepted as normal. But it is not normal. It is a trance. Part 2, the nature of the forgotten language. So what exactly have we forgotten in this trance? What knowledge has been lost? We search for it in ancient texts, deciphering hieroglyphs and trying to reverse engineer the technologies of long-dead civilizations. But we are looking in the wrong place. The primary thing we have lost is not a technology. It is a language. It is the language the universe speaks to itself. And it is not composed of words. It is composed of sensation. Modern humanity believes in the mind. Logic, analysis, rational thought, these are our gods. We believe we can think our way through any problem. But the mind, for all its magnificence, has a fundamental limitation. It can only operate on what it already knows. It is like a librarian in a vast library of past experience. It can brilliantly compile, compare, and analyze the existing books, but it cannot write a single new one. Your body, on the other hand, is not a library. It is a living resonator. It is an unbelievably sensitive antenna, tuned to the present moment. Right now, it is receiving trillions of bits of information from the environment. The gravitational field, electromagnetic waves, atmospheric pressure, the emotional states of the people around you. Your mind cannot process 1/100% of this data, but your body can. It feels. This is what we have forgotten. We have forgotten that feelings are not just chaotic emotional reactions. They are pure, unfiltered data. Anxiety is not just nerves. It might be information about a misalignment between your path and your true nature. Butterflies in your stomach is not just a crush. It might be information about a deep resonance with another being on an energetic level. A heaviness in your chest is not just sadness. It might be information about an unspoken truth or an ungrieved loss. We have been trained to take this pure sensation and immediately hand it over to the mind. And the mind, like the librarian, instantly slaps a label on it from a past experience. Oh, this is anxiety. I felt this when I failed an exam. Therefore, something bad is about to happen. And in that moment, pure information is turned into a story. The signal is turned into noise. Ancient cultures knew this. They were not more primitive than us. They were differently complex. Their technologies were internal. Look at the Polynesian navigators. They could cross thousands of miles of open ocean without a compass or a map. How? They read the ocean. They could feel with their bodies the subtle changes in wave patterns that reflected off distant islands, creating a unique swell. They could lie on the bottom of their canoe and feel the location of land through the hull's vibration. Their body was their primary navigation instrument. They spoke the language of sensation, or consider the concept of the dream time, or song lines of the indigenous Australians. For them, the landscape was not just land. It was the frozen history of creation, which could be read or sung by moving along specific paths. Every rock, river, and tree was a note in the great song of the world. To know where you were going, you just had to know the song. This is not a metaphor. It is a description of a completely different way of perceiving reality, where the inner world and the outer landscape are one. Even our dreams are a vestige of this language. In ancient Egypt or Greece, dreams were not just a byproduct of the brain's activity. They were messages from the gods, from the soul. Entire temples were dedicated to the art of dream incubation, where people would go to sleep in order to receive an answer to an important question. Today, we dismiss dreams as nonsense to be either ignored or handed over to a simplistic psychoanalysis. We have forgotten how to listen. This language of sensation, of intuition, of dreams, of resonance with nature, this is what has been lost. We have gone deaf to the music of existence, and in this deafening silence, we began a desperate search for gates that would take us back home, not realizing we never left. We just stopped listening. Part 3, the architects of the gate. Who were the forgotten gods? This brings us to the final question of this chapter. If the Stargates are internal portals, then who left them? Who are these forgotten gods or ancient builders that the myths speak of? Here we must be extremely careful not to fall into the trap of literalism. The answer is both simpler and far more staggering than tales of aliens from other planets. The gods are not beings. They are functions of consciousness. They are fundamental archetypes, patterns of energy that exist within every one of us. The ancient Greeks were masters at describing this inner ecosystem. Apollo was not just a god with a lyre. He was the archetype of order, logic, clarity, and rational thought. Dionysus was not just a drunken god with a grapevine. He was the archetype of chaos, ecstasy, intuition, the dissolution of boundaries, and unity with nature. Athena, the archetype of wisdom and strategy. Aphrodite, the archetype of love and beauty. A healthy, whole human being is one in whom all of these archetypes are in a dynamic balance. There is a place for Apollonian order and for Dionysian ecstasy, for logic and for intuition, for strategy and for love. Such a being would be truly godlike in their unity and completeness. The forgotten gods, then, are those aspects of our own consciousness that we have suppressed, exiled, and outlawed. At some point in our history, a moment we could call the Great Severing, we made a fatal error. We bet everything on one god, on Apollo, on the rational, logical, egoic mind. We decided that only what could be measured, counted, and proven was real. Everything else, intuition, feeling, ecstasy, unity with nature, the world of Dionysus and the other gods, was declared primitive, dangerous, pagan, uncivilized. We banished the gods from our inner pantheon. We forgot them, and they, being forgotten, did not disappear. They just went underground. They became our collective unconscious. They became the dark, frightening forces that erupt into our orderly lives as inexplicable fears, addictions, sudden rages, or a deep, baseless sorrow. The forgotten gods are us. They are the parts of ourselves that we ourselves have betrayed. And the Stargates? They are the reminders. They are the echoes left by our own wholeness. The myths, the ancient structures, the sacred sites. These are the footprints left by our complete, undivided nature before it went into shadow. They are messages from our own deepest self, calling us to remember, calling us to restore the balance, to open the gates for the exiled gods and allow them to come home into our own consciousness. Thus, the gate of forgetting is not a curse placed upon us from without. It is a choice we once made and continue to make every day. The choice for noise over silence, for the external over the internal, for one part of ourselves at the expense of all the others. And to realize this is the first, most gigantic step toward passing through that gate. You do not need to fight it. You only need to see it clearly without judgment, to see the noise, to see the hunger for approval, to see the fear of silence, to see the exiled gods within you. The first step is not an action, It is the cessation of frantic action. It is a pause, a moment of true, honest observation. And so, I invite you to do that now, to simply stop and to listen, not to my words, but to the silence that holds them. What do you hear in that silence when the world finally stops talking? That subtle whisper is the beginning of the path back. It is the sound of a key turning in the lock of the first gate. Chapter 2. The Key of Sensation. The Body as an Oracle. You are standing at the edge of the great forgetting. You have looked upon its architecture. You have felt its silent influence. And you have heard, in the briefest of pauses, the whisper of something else. A yearning, a memory. You have placed your hand on the frame of the gate. But a gate is not overcome with force. It requires a key. And so begins the second great search of humanity. We look for the key everywhere. We scour ancient manuscripts for secret words of power. We follow gurus who promise hidden techniques. We climb mountains to sit in remote monasteries, hoping to learn the correct method of meditation. We journey into the jungle to drink sacred plants, seeking a vision that will unlock the doors of perception. We build vast machines to probe the heavens and the atom, believing the key is a formula we have yet to solve. These searches are born from a sincere longing, but they are based on a fundamental misunderstanding. They assume the key is lost. They assume it is complex. They assume it is outside of you. I am here to remind you of a truth so simple, so radical, and so liberating that it has been almost entirely overlooked. The key was never lost. You do not need to find it, for you have been holding it your entire life. The key is not a concept, a technique, or a secret. The key is your body. The key is the raw, undeniable, ever-present power of sensation. Part 1. The Tyranny of the Abstract Mind. Before we can learn to use this key, we must understand the force that prevents us from even seeing it. This force is the part of you that is listening to my words right now and trying to analyze them, categorize them, and fit them into its existing framework. It is the thinking mind. Imagine your mind as a master map maker. From the moment you were born, it has been charting the territory of your life. It creates maps of safe and unsafe, maps of good and bad. It has a map for your personality, a map for your relationships, a map for your future. These maps are beliefs, concepts, memories, and plans, and they are incredibly useful tools for navigating the world. But over time, we make a critical error. We forget that the map is not the territory. We begin to live on the map. We experience our thoughts about reality rather than reality itself. We fall in love with the idea of a person, not the person. We suffer from our fear of a future event, not the event itself. We live one step removed from the raw, vibrant, unpredictable truth of the present moment. Language is the primary tool of this map maker. The word water will not quench your thirst. The word fire will not warm your hands. The word love is a pale, flimsy symbol for the overwhelming, life-altering force of the experience itself. By living in a world of words and labels, we place a translucent screen between ourselves and life. We see everything through a filter of pre-existing concepts. And who guards these maps? Who polices this screen? It is the part of you that you call I, the ego, the sense of a separate self. The ego is the great guardian of the known. Its primary agenda is survival, and it ensures this survival through control and prediction. It needs to know what's coming next. It builds its identity out of the past and projects its anxieties onto the future. The ego, the map maker, profoundly distrusts the present moment, and it despises the body. Why? Because the body is wild. The body is always, uncompromisingly, in the now. It cannot be anywhere else. Its sensations are raw, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. You cannot command your heart to feel joy. You cannot instruct a wave of grief to pass. The data stream of sensation is a direct feed from the territory itself, and it constantly threatens to invalidate the mind's precious maps. Therefore, the thinking mind, the ego, has spent your entire life teaching you to ignore your body, to numb it, to distrust it, and to treat it as a mere vehicle for the head. It has convinced you that the key is a worthless piece of metal. Part 2, the body as the living oracle. To reclaim the key is to reverse this lifelong training. It is an act of quiet rebellion. It is the decision to gently withdraw your attention from the chatter of the mind and place it with curiosity and without judgment into the world of sensation. Let us explore the ways in which the body speaks. First, there is the somatic compass. This is the deep, nonverbal intelligence of your organism. It is often called a gut feeling, but it is more pervasive than that. Your entire body is a resonator for truth. Think about a time you had to make a decision. When you considered one path, what did you feel physically? Perhaps a subtle sense of expansion in your chest, a warmth, an opening, a feeling of yes. When you considered the other path, what happened? Perhaps a slight contraction in your stomach, a coldness, a tightening, a feeling of no. This is not imagination. This is your organism, your oracle, giving you a direct reading. It is telling you which path is in resonance with your deepest nature and which is not. We are taught to ignore this compass in favor of pro and con lists and logical analysis. But logic can only analyze the known variables. The body feels the entire unseen energetic reality of a situation. To learn to trust this compass is to align yourself with a wisdom far older and deeper than your own personal mind. Next, and most essentially, there is the breath as the bridge. Your breath is the most magical of all bodily functions. It is the only system that works perfectly on its own, yet can also be consciously controlled. It is the exact midpoint between the voluntary and the involuntary, the conscious and the unconscious. It is the river that flows between the two realms. When your mind is lost in a storm of thought, worrying about the past, planning the future, your breathing becomes shallow and erratic. When you are calm and present, your breathing becomes deep and slow. The link is absolute, but it works both ways. You can use your breath to guide your state of being. Let us try this together now. Wherever you are, simply notice your breath. Don't change it. Just feel the sensation of the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and the feeling of it leaving your body. Now let us take one single conscious breath together. Breathe in slowly and breathe out. In that single moment, you were not in the past or the future. You were here. You were home. You stepped off the noisy map and stood on the firm ground of the territory. This is the simplest and most powerful practice in existence. To return to the breath again and again is to anchor yourself in the present moment, where all true power resides. It is the act of picking up the key. Finally, there are the 5 gates of sensation. We call them the 5 senses, and we think of them as tools for gathering information about the external world. But they are also 5 distinct doorways into the direct experience of reality. 5 ways to use the key. Seeing, go beyond identifying and labeling objects. Practice seeing purely. Look at your own hand, not as my hand, but as a landscape of lines, hills, and textures. Look at a tree, not as an oak tree, but as an explosion of intricate patterns and shades of green. To see without naming is to bypass the mind and experience the world's raw beauty. Hearing. Most of the time we are not listening, we are waiting for our turn to speak. The practice is to listen to the entire symphony of sound. Listen not just to my voice, but to the silence underneath it. Listen to the hum of the room, the distant traffic, the sound of your own circulatory system. The world is constantly broadcasting a rich soundscape. We simply have it tuned to the single, monotonous station of our own thoughts. Touch. This is the most grounding of all senses. Throughout your day, bring your attention to the points of physical contact. Feel the ground beneath your feet as you walk. Feel the texture of your clothes against your skin. Feel the warmth of a cup in your hands. Feel the sensation of water in the shower. To drop your awareness into the sense of touch is to instantly pull your energy out of the abstract world of thought and into the reality of your own body. Smell and taste. These are the most primal senses, wired directly into the most ancient parts of our brain, bypassing the thalamus, our main mental switchboard. They are direct lines to memory and emotion. To eat a meal with full, conscious attention to its taste and aroma is a profound meditative practice. To consciously notice the smell of rain on hot pavement is to open a gate to a forgotten part of your own history. To practice with these 5 gates is to learn how to use the key in all its facets. It is to become a connoisseur of the present moment. Part 3. You are the temple. This brings us back to the great mystery of the ancients. Why did they build such incredible structures? The pyramids, the stone circles, the great cathedrals. Were they merely tombs, calendars, or places of worship? Consider this. They were architectural instruments of consciousness. They were resonance chambers designed with sacred geometry and specific materials to have a direct physical effect on the human beings who entered them. They were massive tuning forks built to quiet the analytical mind and amplify sensation. The precise dimensions of the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid create a powerful resonant frequency that you can feel in your very bones. The soaring vaults and stained glass windows of a Gothic cathedral are engineered to produce a physical sensation of awe, drawing your energy upward from your head into your heart. The standing stones of Karnak or Stonehenge were placed on powerful geomagnetic lines, creating a tangible energy field. These places were not machines to be operated. They were environments that forced the visitor into a state of heightened somatic awareness. They were training grounds that helped people find and use the key of sensation by making its effects impossible to ignore. But here is the final liberating truth. You do not need to travel to Egypt or France. The most sophisticated, perfectly tuned, and portable sacred site in the universe is the one you inhabit right now. You are the temple. Your spine is the central pillar connecting the earth below your feet with the heavens above your head. Your heart is the high altar, the seat of compassion and connection. Your breath is the sacred incense purifying the inner space. Your senses are the stained glass windows, allowing the light of reality to pour in. To care for your body, to listen to it, to honor its wisdom is the highest form of worship. The practice of embodiment is the only pilgrimage you ever need to take. It is the ongoing work of learning to use the key you were given. It is not something you do for 10 minutes in the morning. It is a shift in your entire orientation to life. It is feeling your feet on the floor when you wake up. It is tasting your coffee. It is listening to your child, not just with your ears, but with your whole body. It is noticing the subtle yes or no from your somatic compass before making a choice. This is how you polish the key, not through effort, but through gentle, repetitive, loving attention. You are not trying to achieve a special state. You are simply returning again and again to the home you never left. And as you become more fluent in this forgotten language of sensation, you prepare yourself for what comes next. You prepare yourself for the moment when the gate finally swings open. Chapter 3, Walking Through. Life on the other side of the gate. You have stood before the gate of forgetting, recognizing its architecture in the fabric of your own life. You have reclaimed the key of sensation, remembering that your own body is the oracle, the temple, and the sacred instrument you have sought. You have practiced turning that key, not with force, but with the gentle, consistent pressure of loving attention. So what happens next? What is it like to walk through? The myths and our modern fictions have prepared us for a spectacle, a blinding flash of light, a swirling vortex of stars, a sudden transportation to a golden, utopian world. We expect a revolution, a cataclysm, a grand finale. The reality is far more intimate, far more profound, and far quieter. Walking through the gate is the quietest revolution in the universe. The world around you does not change at all. The sky is the same color. The laws of physics do not bend. Your personal history remains intact. And yet everything has changed because the one who perceives the world has been fundamentally remade. It is like living your entire life in a world of black and white, and then one morning you wake up and perceive the color red for the first time, then blue, then green. The world is the same, but your capacity to experience its richness has infinitely expanded. You have not gone to a new world. You have simply begun to arrive for the first time in this one. Part 1. The emergence of the deeper order. The first and most noticeable shift is in your relationship with the flow of life itself. The world, which once seemed random, chaotic, or even hostile, begins to reveal a hidden coherence, a deeper order. This is the phenomenon often dismissed as coincidence, but known to the wise as synchronicity. This is more than simply thinking of an old friend and having them call you an hour later, though that is often how it begins. It is the experience of your inner world and the outer world beginning to engage in a constant, meaningful dialogue. You hold a question in your heart, and the answer appears in the form of a book that falls off a shelf in front of you. You are struggling with a decision, and you overhear a conversation between strangers that speaks directly to your dilemma. You begin to see repeating patterns, numbers, animals, symbols, that feel less like chance and more like gentle signposts from the universe, confirming you're on the right path. What is happening here? It is not that the universe has suddenly started rearranging itself for your benefit. It is that you have finally tuned your receiver to the frequency on which the universe is always broadcasting. By becoming quiet inside, by living in the somatic reality of the body, you become a more coherent, energetic field. And like a tuning fork that resonates with another of the same frequency, your inner coherence begins to resonate with the inherent order of the cosmos. You start to realize that the world is a mirror. It is constantly reflecting your inner state back to you. When you are lost in the frantic noise of the ego, the world seems noisy and frantic. When you are grounded in the quiet presence of your being, the world reveals its quiet presence and underlying harmony. This leads to the great paradox of this new life. You gain more influence over your reality by letting go of the need to control it. The ego wants to force outcomes, to bend reality to its will through effort and struggle. But the embodied self learns to trust the current of the river. You learn to state your intention, to feel your yes, and then to release it, allowing the greater intelligence of life to handle the details. You move from making things happen to creating the inner conditions for things to be allowed to happen. This is a profound shift from a life of resistance to a life of dance. Part 2. The new inner authority. As your relationship with the outer world transforms, so too does your relationship with yourself. The most significant change is the emergence of a new, unshakable inner authority. The quiet whisper you first strained to hear in the silence, the voice of your somatic compass, becomes clearer, more consistent, and more reliable. It is not a voice of words that argues or rationalizes. It is a simple, direct, instantaneous knowing. It is a feeling of rightness that permeates your entire body. It guides your choices, from the food you eat, to the work you do, to the people you spend time with, not from a place of fear or should, but from a place of deep cellular integrity. With the strengthening of this inner guidance, the lifelong, desperate hunger for external validation begins to dissolve. It does not happen overnight, but slowly, you notice you are less concerned with what others think of you. You no longer feel the compulsive need to post your successes online for applause. You can receive criticism without it shattering your sense of self. You can say no without guilt. Why? Because your sense of worth is no longer a fluctuating variable dependent on the opinions of others. It has become an inner-generated constant. You have tapped into the wellspring of your own being, and you realize that your worth is inherent, unconditional, and not up for debate. This is the birth of true freedom. It is the freedom to be authentically yourself, perhaps for the first time in your life. This new authority also transforms your relationship with fear. Fear is a natural part of life, but the neurotic, chronic fear that plagues modern humanity begins to lose its grip. This is the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of death, the fear of the unknown. This fear is the primary product of the ego, the separate self. The ego's greatest terror is of its own annihilation. But as you walk through the gate, your primary identity begins to shift. You no longer experience yourself solely as a small, fragile, separate wave on the surface of the ocean. You begin to feel in your quiet moments the truth of your nature as the entire ocean. The fear of the wave disappearing loses its ultimate sting when you know you are the water. You can still experience fear as a sensation, as a signal to pay attention, but it no longer paralyzes you. It no longer dictates your life. You can feel fear and still move forward, holding its hand like a nervous child, because you are now guided by something far greater. Part 3. The re-enchantment of the world. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this transformation is how it infuses the ordinary moments of your life with an extraordinary quality of presence. The goal of this path is not to live in a state of perpetual bliss or to have constant peak experiences. The goal is to discover the sacred in the mundane. Washing the dishes ceases to be a chore and becomes a sensory experience. The warmth of the water, the smoothness of the ceramic, the scent of the soap. A walk down a city street ceases to be a means of getting from A to B and becomes a symphony of sights, sounds, and energies. Drinking a simple glass of water becomes an act of communion with a life-giving element. This is the true meaning of mindfulness. It is not a sterile clinical practice. It is the re-enchantment of your world through the power of your own embodied attention. This new perception naturally deepens your connection to all of life. When you speak with another person, you are no longer just interacting with their personality, their egoic map. You begin to sense the being behind their eyes, the silent presence that is the same as the presence within you. Conversations become less about exchanging data and more about a communion of being. You listen more than you speak. You offer the gift of your presence, which is the most healing thing you can give to another. Your connection with nature undergoes a profound shift as well. A forest is no longer a collection of trees. It becomes a community of living, breathing beings. You feel their ancient, slow presence. An animal is no longer just an animal. It is another expression of the one life, looking back at you with its own unique consciousness. You realize you are not an observer of nature. You are a participant in a sacred dialogue that has been going on for billions of years. And in this state, you come to understand the final truth of the forgotten gods. You are not just meeting them, you are living them. In your capacity for clear thought and order, you embody Apollo. In your moments of deep, intuitive wisdom, you embody Athena. In your experience of unconditional love and the appreciation of beauty, you embody Aphrodite. And in your ecstatic connection to nature, to music, to the dance of life itself, you embody Dionysus. You have not summoned them. You have simply made space for them to live through you. You have reintegrated your own inner pantheon. You have become whole. Conclusion. A beginning, not an end. We have journeyed far. We have seen that the Stargate is not a physical place, but the threshold between a state of sleep and a state of wakefulness. We have learned that the key is not a secret, but the simple, radical act of inhabiting our own body. And we have explored what it means to walk through that gate, to live in a world that is the same, yet utterly transformed. But this is not the end. The gate opens onto a path, not a paradise. This new way of being is not a static state to be achieved, but a continuous, moment-to-moment practice of returning. Returning to the breath, returning to the senses. Returning to the quiet, authoritative knowing in your heart. The ultimate purpose of the Stargate, the final secret left by the forgotten gods of our own deeper nature, was never to help us escape the world or to travel to the distant stars. It was to help us realize that we are the stars. It was a reminder that you are a piece of the cosmos that has, against all odds, woken up to itself. Your journey is not to leave this earth, but to more fully arrive. To embody the vast, intelligent, loving consciousness of the universe right here, in this body, in this precious life. The gate is open. The path is before you. The only question left is, will you walk it? So after this long journey through the gates of consciousness, where do we stand? What is the ultimate solution? What is the final answer? The honest truth is this. I have not offered you a 10-step plan to enlightenment or a secret technique for instant bliss, because none exists. The universe does not deal in such crude merchandise. The path inward is not a straight line to be conquered, but a spiral to be walked. It is a path of remembering and forgetting, of clarity and confusion, of profound connection and moments of deep loneliness. It is the path of being human. The great solution is not to add something new to your life. It is not another belief system to adopt, another identity to wear, another complex practice to master. The true path is one of radical simplification. It is a process of unlearning. It is the courageous act of letting go of everything you think you need to be happy, to be safe, to be worthy. It is the work of clearing away the debris of a lifetime, the second-hand opinions, the inherited fears, the cultural conditioning, so that you can finally perceive what has been here all along. You do not need to build a rocket ship to travel to the stars. You only need to wipe the dust from the window of your own perception. Throughout our time together, we have spoken of knowing and remembering. It is crucial to feel the difference. To know something is an act of the mind. You can know all the theories about embodiment. You can read 1,000 books on mysticism. You can memorize the names of all the gods. This is knowledge. It is useful, but it is hollow. To remember is an act of the body, of the soul. It is when a piece of information clicks into place, not in your head, but in your very cells. It is the feeling of, ah, yes, I have always known this. This entire journey has been an invitation not to learn, but to remember what is already encoded in your bones. Therefore, the practical outcome of this journey is not a new map for your life. Any map I could give you would be obsolete tomorrow. Instead, the goal is to learn to trust your inner compass. This is the tangible, felt sense of rightness in your own body. This is the only navigational tool you will ever need. From this day forward, I invite you to try a new perspective. When faced with a choice or a challenge, big or small, resist the urge to immediately run to your logical mind to solve it. Instead, pause, breathe, drop your attention out of your head and into your body, and ask a simpler, deeper question. How does this feel? Does this path, this person, this choice make the energy in my body expand or contract? Does it feel like truth, or does it feel like a compromise? This is how you begin to live in dialogue with your inner oracle. Your life ceases to be a series of problems to be solved and becomes a continuous conversation with the wisdom of the universe, which speaks directly through the instrument of your body. And this brings us to the final understanding of the Stargate. It is not a place you pass through once today while watching a video. The Stargate is the present moment. It is a living, breathing potential that exists right here, right now. Every time you consciously choose to pull your attention from the noise of the world and anchor it in the sensation of your own being, you are standing within the gate. Every conscious breath is an activation. Every moment of true embodied listening is a passage. The Stargate is not a destination. It is the perpetual opportunity to come home. As we prepare to part ways, there is one last thing I want you to feel in your heart. You are not alone in this. That strange pull you felt toward the stars, that sense of cosmic homesickness, that quiet feeling of being a stranger on your own planet, it is not a sign that you are broken or that you don't belong. It is the most powerful sign that your soul is healthy. It is the sign that your spirit is remembering its true home, a home that is not a place in time or space, but a state of profound connection to the whole. This feeling is your guide. It is the first whisper of truth. I want you to know that the journey you are on is real, but it is not always easy. The tide of the world is strong. The noise is loud. The habit of forgetting is deeply ingrained. There will be days, weeks, or even months when you feel you have lost the path entirely, when you will be swept away by the storm of your thoughts, when the needs of the ego will scream for your attention, when the inner silence will seem a distant memory. Do not despair in those moments. Do not judge yourself. This is not failure. It is simply the rhythm of the path. The practice is not to never get lost. The practice is to become gentler and quicker at finding your way back. To notice with compassion, I have been lost in thought, and then to gently, without force, guide your attention back to your breath. That is all. That is the entire work. In a world that shouts at you from every screen, telling you who to be, what to want, and what to fear, your own quiet, inner truth is your most precious and sacred possession. Guard it. Nurture it in silence. Do not feel the need to explain it or defend it to others. It is not a debate to be won. It is a fire to be tended. It is the signal from your own North Star, and it will guide you through the darkest of nights. And even if it feels difficult now, even if you feel you are just at the very beginning, know that this awareness itself is a profound arrival. The simple fact that you are here, listening to these words, means that a part of you is already awake and seeking. You are on the path. You are doing the great work. Be patient with your unfolding. Our time together is at an end. The story is told. But the journey is now yours. When all the words have faded, mine included, and you are left alone in the quiet cathedral of your own being, I leave you with one final question. It is not a question for your mind to answer. It is a question for your soul to contemplate. What will you remember when you forget everything you have been taught? Let this not be the end of a video. Let it be the beginning of your own quiet listening,